Hi, my name is Robin Meyer, and I'm with the East Cobb Quilters Guild here in Marietta, Georgia. And today I'm going to talk with Fran Fister as another installment in our series of interviews called Who We Are. These interviews are designed to introduce our guild members to each other, and because we are a pretty large guild, and to the general public. Without any further ado, hi, Fran, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great this morning. Thank you.
Why don't we start off by you just sharing with us how you got started with quilting originally? When was it and how did it all happen?
Quilting was probably my last art skill that I had learned. I knitted when I was 6. I crocheted when I was 7. I always did embroidery or needlework, but no quilting.
Huh.
When I went to high school, of course, I took home economics and absolutely loved it. So I made clothes like for everybody, including my husband.
Wow.
So I think my first introduction to quilting might have been from a Woolworth store, Five and Dime, where I saw a quilt kit that was embroidered, cross-stitched, stamped with probably sizing, blue dots everywhere, where you could quilt after. I said, oh, I could quilt. I embroider, so how hard could the quilting hand stitch be? So I did this before I was married, kind of like a hope chest kind of thing. And of course, I got the embroidery done, but not the quilting. I'm married now, and I was pregnant, and we were living in LaGrange, Indiana, real close to Shipshewana, which is 60% horse and buggy Amish.
Right.
So before I had him, I was walking around the block and I met this horse and buggy Amish lady. And she said, well, I was very big. He was 10 pounds and something. So she said, what did I do? What do I like to do? And I said, I'm trying to hand quilt this piece, but my back is hurting. And I blamed it, of course, on pregnancy or something. And she said, I'll do it for you. So she quilted all of that by hand and charged me a whole total of $35.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, that was 48 years ago. But anyway, I just love that piece just because they did it for me. So I still didn't, so let's say 8 months later, here comes my baby, he's born. And I did a crazy quilt because it had all of those embroidery stitches that I love to do. And I was inspired by Ron's aunt. She had a beautiful throw that she kept over a rocker that was velvet and, silks and stuff. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so I thought I could do that. And it taught me how hard crazy quilting really is. It's not as easy as it looks. But I made him a quilt, a baby quilt, out of all of my lining material from clothing, which wasn't very smart to do. But the only thing left of that quilt are the embroidery stitches. Everything is gone from the crazy quilt pieces, but I kept it anyway. It's a rag.
Right.
So I made a crazy quilt for each of my children. They were born in LaGrange, Indiana. We only lived there 4 years. I have 3 kids. There was a hitching post in front of the hospital.
For those horses and buggies, right.
I said to Ron, we got to get out of here. There's something in this water. So we moved to Bloomington Normal, and across the street from me when I lived there was a traditional quilter. And she taught me. She started with the, she taught me the rules, the quarter inch and stuff like that, because I could already sew. And she started me on the log cabin of, I love that pattern. So that was my introduction to quilting. And then I was hooked. I stopped making clothes and all I did was patterning from that.
Yes. I think you're not the only one who has had their other needlework hobbies sort of fall away
First,
once we go down that quilting rabbit hole. And I mean, I used to embroider and knit and crochet too, but I don't even really want to sew on a button now.
I know. It's just, I think it's the patterning, the piecing, the cutting, all of the intricate parts that make it so wonderfully fun. And if you are a perfectionist by nature, that's your hobby.
Yeah. So do you think of yourself as a perfectionist?
I do.
Yeah, I thought you
If
did.
something's wrong in a seam, I can't leave it. If I turn one of my seams back, I take it out and fix it.
Yeah,
I can't do it. My young quilters tease me mercifully about that.
good for them.
They do.
So,
They tease me and they say, "What does it matter, friend? It matters exponentially. It matters." You know, it's fun.
so how did you get into teaching kids? Tell us a little bit about, I think you do some summer camps and vacation camps and that sort of thing. So tell us about that.
That's how I started with So Blessed. But I think it goes back to when my children were really young, and I worked for a needle art center just on Saturdays. I opened the shop for, and because I was a knitter, she asked me to knit her samples. And Olivia was 5, and I said, "How about if I teach a class on Saturday for kids?" I just appreciate my mentors that taught a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old in the day when kids are to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they just were pests. And I really do think my grandma, my Hungarian grandma, we lived with her for a year while our house was being built or something. And she could crochet like a machine. I've never seen anybody with such perfect tension as hers. And so I told her at 7, I wanted to do that. And she said, okay. She couldn't speak English very well, so she made me get behind her to watch her hands, and she'd slow it down for me. And for some reason, she was using like a 9 steel. She gave me a 14 with the number 10. If you know anything about
Yes, so
crocheting,
those are
that's the
really big.
smallest hook there is.
Oh,
No,
oh, the other way.
no,
Okay.
it's the other way in the steel for lace
Okay.
making.
Okay.
That's what she did, doilies and, that's
Oh,
great
that kind of
stuff like
crochet.
that.
Okay.
You're real fine. And who in their right mind would give a 7-year-old something that can pierce fabric? It's fine. It's you can't even see the hook. And she gave me tatting thread. I think, Robin, I think she was trying to get rid of me.
Did it work? You learned to crochet?
On a 14.
Wow, you're a tough cookie.
That's nuts. And then later she finally probably felt sorry for me. That's the hardest crochet there is. There really is. And she prejudiced me, unbeknownst to her, that I liked the lace making the most. See,
Yeah.
when I got to where I could read a pattern and do yarn, I didn't like it. It just felt like I was crocheting rope.
Right. Right.
Compared to the fine thread. And
Well,
I still make doilies and lace. And isn't that funny?
I
She
think maybe she
prejudiced,
had a plan.
maybe. And either that or she was trying to see what I was made of or get rid of me, one or the other. Get rid of this little pest. And so when I started young girls in crochet or knitting, I started them at the middle of the road. So I didn't prejudice them one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I used a 0 hook and baby cotton, and it was something they could see the stitch and feel it. And I called them nitty gritty kids. So I taught them from, when Olivia was 5. All my kids can knit and crochet and cross stitch. I think it's good for your brain.
Yeah, I think it is
Any
too.
kind of patterning is good for your brain. Playing the piano, anything.
Yeah.
Patterning. So I've always taught children of my kids, friends. I let them, nothing formal.
Mm-hmm.
But when I had my mom come and live with me, she lived with me for 9 months. We used to do crafts together, and we had an unfinished basement. And so I said, Ron, I think it's time we'll just finish this one room and I will teach with my mom. So I already owned that Hungarian grandma. I owned her Singer 66.
Mhm.
And then I had two featherweights of my own. And I said, we'll make these tables 2x6 so they sit opposite each other. And Andy Barney sold
Yeah.
me two more 66s. And I said, I think I want another featherweight just for balance. She said, Fran, that's too expensive. It's too expensive. I'll get you one that's a similar size. And she sold me a 99, which I love. It's opposite it sits further away from my featherweights, but it looks like that size.
Right.
So I have three 66s, two featherweights, and a 99 that I teach them on. And they're old vintage machines, but hey, those kids love them.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted that look. So Andy sold me those three for like $500. Pretty good.
Right.
Three of them. So my husband and I sunk them in a table and they can sit opposite each other. I learned from going to retreats. That's the best way to set up your machines and you can talk to each other.
Right.
And because I saw camps for everything, like, you name it, they have a camp for horseback riding or this. And I said, what if I just this was the summer I needed to watch Landon. And I thought, hey, you can help me with this. We'll just do this camp. You could be my cutter. I knew he wasn't
And Landon is your grandson.
my grandson,
Right.
who is now going to be 17 in September.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. But that was my original plan. And it was a week long, 9 a.m. till 5. And they never left at 5. I had them bring their lunch. They loved it. That was a lot of work. I taught them everything about fabric, everything you could possibly know.
So this is kids from your neighborhood and friends of
They
friends.
were actually some acquaintances of Landon, and their mom had known Olivia, and that's how I started my first camp. But my second camp was Dr. Duncan's two daughters and a friend of theirs. And then word of mouth just spread, and there you go. So this year I went to once a week, every week if you want to come or whatever, because it was easier for me. And Landon can drive now, so he didn't need me anymore.
Right.
And that has worked beautifully. I've had these girls for over a year. These 5 come once a week, and the oldest one has a job now, and she says, this is my schedule. What's your schedule? We'll see what we put in. I just love it. They're so interested, and now they knit and crochet. They're not just sewing.
Wow.
I didn't really set out to start to teach them to quilt. I wanted them to learn how to use a sewing machine because, hey, they've taken it out of schools. How bad is that?
Yeah.
Home ec is out of schools. That's a basic life skill that people should know.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
And it's not like you're going to have a career in the sweatshops or anything, but you should learn to have an art or a skill, some kind of something other than the phone. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, you need to hem a pair of pants, or you need to make your curtains shorter, or you want to make you've got this nifty little thing and you want to make a pillow. There are a million reasons to be able to sew, just like there are a million reasons to be able to use a screwdriver.
That's exactly right. And I tell my husband the same thing. You need to start something for young men that don't know a hill of beans
about what to do with a screwdriver. Yeah.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. And I said or gardening. And some of these kids love to garden with Ron because they don't even know that.
Yeah.
They don't know where their food comes from. It's really quite sad.
Well, yeah, but it's a great thing that you both are doing. So that's
we love
that's
to
all
do
we
it,
can
and
that's all any of us can do is what we see in front of us to fix.
That's right. And he does outside and I do inside, and he loves these girls. They come, and one time, I gotta tell you this, one time they were saying, Miss Fran, do you have some water? I'm just so thirsty. I said, just a minute, I'll call my butler. I shouldn't have said that, but I did. I'll call my butler. And they call him that lovingly now, and he comes down and brings them something every time they're
That's great. That's great. A full service
Bring
opera.
some cookies or fruit or something, and they don't ask necessarily if I'm here. They want to know if the butler's home.
That's what I'd be asking too, Fran.
They look for the butler. I love it.
So for your own quilts, what do you like best about quilt making? What I see some intricate patchwork behind you, but I think of you with applique as well.
Yes, I do. My favorite, believe it or not, is the one patch. That's why when I did that challenge, I made everybody just do their favorite shape. It could be the equilateral, the square, the hexagon, whatever it is. I like to do that because then I will be the only one with this quilt because I use the color from the fabric
Right.
to make my design. This one behind me is my 14-year-old who designed. She is my force, I call her. She is something else. She'll draw it out on paper. She's a musician though, see? She plays a violin. So she already has patterning tendencies in her mind.
Right.
So
right.
That phone is ringing. Do you hear it?
No, I don't.
Good. I turned it off. I'm going to tell Ron, stop. So she's really smart like that. And so that's bad. I'm like my grandma that way. I have the tendency to show what I like. That's bad. But I tell them this is what's possible. I try not to steer them that way, but you will have a unique something by your own fabric.
Right.
So one of my favorites is the One Block Wonder, because then no one will have one like me.
Yes. Yes. I think One Block Wonders are fascinating.
They're really fascinating. And I'm teaching them that. I showed them what that was. Now I cut the equilateral so that they would be, just right. And I showed them how to line up the 6 layers of fabric, and they were fascinated by that.
Right. Right. Well, it is fascinating that you have a very advanced group there. If that's the direction they're going, that's great.
Oh my goodness. This is disappointing, but they don't like to do handwork. They all want it to be on the machine. They do not want to read their manual.
Right.
Not.
Right.
I'm serious. I bet it's still in the wrapper.
Right. Right. Well,
it's just
they're not the only ones of us, Fran.
it's just the generation. And I try to tell them, I said, now, the manual is to your machine what the Bible is to our lives. You have to know what it says to know what to do.
Okay. Well, you stick to that. Good luck with that.
I know. I stick to it. But, and get this, they're not even just sewing with me anymore, because I have given them some sourdough snacks when they've been here. Hey, could we do baking one day a week? So we do that.
All right. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your quilting, because I know you've taken home some ribbons from our quilt show, and I know that you're renowned for your handwork, for your hand quilting and your hand stitching. I remember one quilt in particular that was hexagons with applique.
Yes.
And
see that hexagon again. I did that from a fabric exchange. See, I never really had a plethora of fabric until I did that first fabric exchange. And I said, wow, that's wonderful, to have all these different colors. So I challenged myself to cut one hexagon from each of those pieces, ugly or not. I had to use it. It had to be in there. So what I've learned is that something isn't as ugly when you put it something close to something that's pretty.
And when you cut it small enough.
And when you call it small enough, but they were all the same size. So that one in particular, I cut my own stencil for the different designs on the hexagon. And I think that's what the judges saw.
Yeah.
Because I had never seen anything like that.
So remind me of the name of that.
It was Grandma and Landon's Flower Garden, I think.
Yes, I think that was it. Yes.
Okay. Something like that. Yeah.
That
So
was,
I will send you a picture of that one. That is definitely my favorite quilt I have ever made.
yeah.
Probably because it was for Landon.
Hmm.
I put it in a show in Kentucky where the hand quilting prize was $500, just a little town there. And when I was hanging the show, because I was part of that guild, I thought, well, I know who won. And I picked the quilt that won. But here's the thing that judge did. She was on a numerical scale. And I got second. So that was good. But she said she had never seen quilting like that. On the scale of 0 to 10, she gave me a 12.
Whoa.
And I thought, that's what I thought. But the best part on the form, she wrote at the top, "Wow" in capital letters. And my Landon, whenever I was making it with him when he was little, and we'd walk the dogs outside to go to the bathroom, I would show him different flowers and I'd say, "Landon, look at these flowers that God has made." And he would just imitate me because he was 2. I'd say, "Wow." And he would say it back to me. Wow. And so I said, when she wrote that on there, that was better than the first place prize.
Right. That's wonderful.
When she wrote "wow" on there, I called my daughter immediately because, she wanted me to win, of course.
Right. Right.
And I said, "Well, I got second, but you know what? You know what this judge said?" And I framed it. I framed it.
Well, good. That's exactly what you should have done.
Yeah, it was neat. And you know what else she told me? I thought this was very interesting. She said, of course, she critiqued me. She said, "Why so much white?" But she didn't know that was my rules, my self-imposed rules, that I couldn't use anything but those challenge, that
Hmm.
exchange. And she said, "Your binding, get this, should have been on the straight, not the bias."
Hmm.
And I thought, did she tell me she was a reproduction artist?
Hmm.
And I said, "I wonder if it's because my edge of my hexagon could be on the bias." I came home and ripped that binding off and put it on the straight and put it in an East Cobb.
And I think I know what happened next. You got a blue ribbon.
Yeah. But isn't that funny that
Yeah.
she would see that? And I value those judging sheets. Some people don't like that critique, but oh my goodness, that's how you get better.
It is. It is. And a lot of times they tell you things you already know, things that that you didn't do quite as well as you could have done. But lots of times
Right.
it's just a perspective that you don't have.
But I thought all bindings should be on the bias. But she said your binding should have been on the straight. And I think it's because the hexagon, some of my sides could have been the bias. And she
Hmm.
said, bias to bias, she wanted, I don't
Right.
know, it did look better.
Yeah.
When I did it, and that it looked better. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, all right then.
Yeah.
So
Well, when did you join the guild? How long ago was that?
I've been trying to think about that. And my mom was with me, so she's been gone 7 years. I'm going to say eight,
Okay.
8 or 9. And the reason I joined, I was in another closer guild, but I knew there had to be a little more out there. And there is nothing like the East Cobb Quilt Guild. Nothing. No, I'm serious. I'm not just saying that to you. I've never seen such a well-oiled machine in the workings. And, when I got to work on some of the committees, I was very impressed. I'm impressed with your selection of artists that come in and teach. But what I love most, and I keep telling this to Ron, is your charity.
Mm.
That's what I love, to be able to use our skill to an advantage.
Yeah.
And given to defects, those quilts, and I mean, there's nothing quite like it.
I think that's a crucial part of what we do. I really do. And I think it's so wonderful how active it has been in the last few years. I mean, the amount of sewing for others that we've been doing is just,
I know.
it's just staggering, just staggering.
It's wonderful. And the bead bags, even I've been trying to get these young girls to see the value of giving back, not just all me. And one girl said, I said, we're going to do a charity quilt together. We're going to work on it together. And all my fabric, you can use whatever you want. And we're going to, and some girl said, do we get paid for that?
Oh,
I said, no. Charity means we buy it and we give it away.
way, right. Along with our labor and our love.
And yes. And she said, oh, okay. And so those bead bags,
Mm-hmm.
my oldest one loves to do that. Now I do all the work she doesn't want to do, like the labels. I put that on, I turn them inside out for her. What she loves is to use the serger and thread the strings through for me.
Right. Well,
Their name will be on there.
right.
For doing that. So she loves it. So we're up to 70 bags.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
We've done
goodness.
70. Yeah, we're shooting for 100. We're going to see.
Okay. Okay. Well, Fran, this has been great. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us today, and
Thank you.
and your enthusiasm. It just comes right on through the screen, and it's been a wonderful time talking with you.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it.